Mia, 22. I was the kind of girl who packed her lunch, showed up early, and kept her head down because I thought that's what grown-up life was. And then my boss looked at me in front of everyone and said, "So are we admitting you stole the missing cash, or are we doing this the hard way?" The room went dead quiet like somebody hit mute. A few people stared at their screens like they suddenly became interesting, and one girl actually smirked like she'd been waiting for this. I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I just looked at the security camera in the corner and then back at my manager and I said, "Can you say that again? I want to make sure I heard you right." He laughed like I was being cute. "You heard me. Don't play innocent." That's when I decided something, silently, right there with my hands flat on the table. I was going to let them keep talking. I was going to let them build their story, because the only way to end something like this is to let people feel safe while they lie. 30 minutes earlier, I'd been in the break room stirring cheap coffee, watching my bank app load, doing the math on rent and gas, and the stupid overdraft fee I'd gotten last week. Money was tight, like I was skipping dinner some nights and calling it being healthy. I'd been proud of myself for not asking anyone for help. I was independent, or at least I pretended I was. I worked front desk at a small fitness studio in a strip mall outside Dallas. Not glamorous, but steady. And I liked the regulars, I liked the routine. Until that morning, it started with a text from my co-worker Tessa, "Heads up, don't freak out." Then another, "Kyle's looking for you." Kyle was our manager. Late 20s, always smiling, always team culture, always acting like he was everybody's friend while he kept the schedule and the power like a weapon. I walked out to the front and saw him standing with 2 trainers and the owner's son, Brett, who popped in like a little prince whenever he felt like it. Kyle didn't pull me aside. He didn't lower his voice. He just planted himself right by the check-in desk, where members could literally hear us if the door opened. "Mia," he said. Loud, "We need to talk about the drawer." I blinked. "What about it?" He opened the cash drawer like he was presenting evidence in court. "It's short, again." Brett crossed his arms and leaned back on the smoothie fridge, just watching. One of the trainers, Jen, did that thing where she looked sympathetic but didn't move an inch. Kyle said, "It was fine yesterday. You closed. You were the only one on register." I said, "I counted it with the sheet like always." Kyle cut me off. "Okay, and now it's not matching." "So what's that mean?" I kept my voice level. "It means we should check the cameras." He waved his hand like I was being dramatic. We already did a quick look. Then he dropped it. "And I'm not saying you're a thief, Mia, but it's starting to look like you're a thief." That word hung there. Thief. In public. In front of people I saw every day. I felt my face stay still even though my chest went tight. Jen glanced at the floor. Brett's mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile. Kyle said, "If you just tell me what happened, we can handle it quietly." Quietly. Like he was doing me a favor. Like I was a child. I said, "How much is missing?" Kyle looked at the paper. 400. I actually almost laughed because it was so stupid. $400. Like I'd risked my job over a number that wouldn't even cover my car payment. Kyle said, "So, you want to explain?" I looked at the camera again, then at the sign-in iPad, then at the cash log sheet taped under the keyboard. Everything in that space was trackable if someone cared to check it for real. I said, "Can you show me the footage you watched?" Kyle's tone got sharp. "Mia, don't make this harder. People are noticing," and that's when it got worse, because a member walked in, a sweet older lady named Mrs. Calder. She heard Kyle's voice and paused mid-step like she walked into the wrong room. Kyle didn't stop. He just kept going. "We can't have someone on staff stealing. It's a business." Mrs. Calder's eyes flicked to me, then away. She said a quiet, "Oh," and walked past like she hadn't heard. That hurt more than Kyle. That polite little retreat. Like I was already guilty enough to avoid. I said, "So what happens now?" Kyle leaned forward. "Now you hand over your keys. We'll do an internal review. And if you cooperate, maybe we don't have to get the police involved." Police. Another word meant to shrink me. Jen finally spoke, barely. Mia, maybe just do what he says. I nodded once, slow, and slid my keyring across the desk. My hands didn't shake, not because I was brave, because I'd gone numb. Kyle scooped them up fast like he'd won. Brett said, "You'll need to sign a statement before you leave." I looked at him. A statement that says what? Brett smiled like he was being reasonable. That you acknowledge the shortage and that you were responsible for the draw. I didn't answer. I just stared at the statement on the counter. It was already printed. That's what got me, not the accusation, the preparation. This wasn't a surprise problem. This was a plan. Kyle tapped the paper with his finger. Come on, let's not drag this out. I picked up the pen, held it above the line, and then set it back down gently. I'm not signing that. Kyle's eyes flashed. Excuse me, I said. I'll leave, but I'm not signing anything. Brett's smile disappeared. Then we'll have to escalate. I nodded like I understood, like I accepted the rules of their little game. Okay. I grabbed my bag from under the desk and walked out while everyone pretended to suddenly be busy. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say a dramatic line. I just walked to my car, sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, and watched the front entrance for a full minute. Then I did the one thing I hadn't done yet. I opened my phone and checked my photo album. Because 2 nights ago, I'd taken a quick video at closing, just messing around, showing my friend how empty the studio looked at night. And in the background of that video, for half a second, you could see the register area. And you could see something I didn't notice at the time. Someone's hand, not mine, reaching into the drawer after I'd already counted it. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I felt that calm click in my head again. They wanted this quiet. They wanted me alone. They wanted me broken, scared enough to sign whatever they put in front of me. I started the car, pulled out, and drove somewhere I didn't usually go because if I was going to do this right, I needed one person who wouldn't try to handle it internally. And while I drove, Kyle's words kept replaying in my head. People are noticing, and I realized he was right. People were noticing. They just didn't know the right story yet. If you're still here, stay with me because the next place I walked into had cameras too, and what I asked for, they would make it impossible for Kyle to ever laugh at me like that again. I drove straight to the little police substation near the shopping center, not because I wanted sirens or drama, but because I wanted a timestamp and a paper trail. The lobby smelled like old coffee and copier toner. A woman behind the glass asked what I needed, and I said, I want to report that my workplace is accusing me of stealing, and I think they're trying to pressure me into signing a false statement. She blinked like she didn't expect that level of calm. She slid a clipboard out and told me to write down the business name, address, and the names of the people involved. While I wrote, my phone buzzed. Kyle. Then again. Then Tessa. I didn't answer. I kept writing. A few minutes later, an officer came out, mid-40s, tired eyes, not rude, just direct. He asked me to explain it from the start. So I did, in order, with no extras. Draw, short, public accusation, printed statement, threat of police. I refused to sign. I left. I told him I had a video from 2 nights ago that might show someone else at the draw after close. He nodded and said, email it to this address, we can log it. The second he said, log it, I felt something shift. Not relief, just traction. Like my tires finally hit pavement after spinning in mud. I emailed the video from my car in the parking lot. It was shaky, short, and not some perfect Hollywood proof. But it was something, the studio empty, the front desk in the background, and a hand bigger than mine opening the drawer. You couldn't see a face, but you could see the wrist, a watch, chunky black band. I didn't own a watch like that. When I got home, I didn't collapse on my bed or call my mum to cry. I opened my laptop and started pulling everything I could think of into one folder. My schedules, my clock-in screenshots, old texts from Kyle telling me to help out by closing alone, the cash count photos I sometimes took because the totals never matched what the system said. I didn't even know why I took those pictures at the time. Habit, I guess. Or maybe my gut knew before my brain did. Around noon, Tessa finally called, and I picked up. She sounded like she was whispering from a closet. "Mia, I'm so sorry," she said. "This is bad." I said, "Did Kyle tell you to call me?" She hesitated. "He told everyone not to talk to you." I let that sit for a beat. "Okay, so why are you talking to me?" Her voice cracked just a little. "Because I saw something last week, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get dragged into it. I kept my tone even. What did you see?" she exhaled. "Brett. After close, he came in through the side door. Kyle let him, and they went to the desk. I thought they were grabbing keys or whatever. Then Kyle told me to leave early, like weirdly insisted. My fingers tightened around my phone. Did you see them open the drawer?" "Not fully. I saw Brett leaning over it. That's all." I said, "Do you remember what Brett was wearing?" She didn't even have to think. "That black watch, the big one. He always wears it." My stomach stayed calm, but everything in my head got sharp. The watch, the same chunky black band in my video. I said, "Tessa, I'm not asking you to pick sides. I'm asking you to tell the truth if someone official asks." She went quiet. Then she said, "Kyle said if anyone talks, they'll lose hours." There it was. The money scarcity hook in real life. People didn't stay silent because they agreed. They stayed silent because they had rent. I said, "If you get asked, tell the truth. That's it," she whispered. "Okay," and hung up fast like she was scared someone could hear the air move. An hour later, Kyle texted me, "You need to come in and sign the statement. If you don't, we'll have no choice." Then Brett texted me from a number I didn't have saved. "Don't make this ugly. You'll ruin your future over $400. That one made me laugh just once because it told me exactly what I needed to know. They weren't confident. Confident people don't beg you to keep it quiet. I screenshotted both messages and dropped them into my folder. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called an employment attorney. Not a fancy one, a regular one with a receptionist who sounded like she'd seen everything. I told her I'd been accused of theft, pressured to sign a false confession, and threatened with police if I didn't cooperate. She asked, "Do you have anything in writing?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you have witnesses?" I said, "Maybe." She said, "Do you have any video?" I said, "I have a clip that shows someone else at the drawer after I closed." Her voice changed just slightly, like she sat up straighter. "Okay, book a consult, and don't talk to them without counsel." That word counsel felt like a door locking behind me. I wasn't alone in a parking lot anymore. That afternoon, Kyle emailed me an official termination letter that said I was being let go for policy violations. No theft listed, no mention of the missing money, just vague language, like he wanted the power to hint at theft, but not the liability of saying it plainly. I forwarded it to the attorney. Then, because I'm not naive, I pulled up the studio's online reviews and my own socials, and I set everything to private. I could already see what they might try next. Paint me as unstable, dramatic, a problem. The false independence thing had always been my weakness. I'd tried so hard not to need anyone that I'd made myself easy to isolate. So I did the opposite. I texted my mom, simple. "Can you talk tonight? I need advice." I texted my friend Lila. "If I send you a video, save it. Redundancy. Documentation. Safety." Then I got a voicemail from Jen, the trainer who'd stood there while Kyle accused me. Her voice sounded shaky, like she was trying to be brave. "Hey, I just wanted to say, Kyle told us you admitted it." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at my wall, letting that sink in. They were spreading a confession that didn't exist. They were building a reality around me while I sat quietly collecting receipts. I finally texted Jen back. I did not admit anything. I refused to sign. If you hear that again, ask him to show it in writing." She didn't reply. That night, my attorney called. She said, "Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to send a letter telling them to preserve all camera footage, cache logs, and door access records. Second, you're not going to contact Kyle again, except through me. Third, you're going to write down everything you remember while it's fresh." I looked down at my folder. It was already halfway done. I said, "What if they delete the footage?" She paused. "If they delete it after receiving a preservation notice, that becomes its own problem for them." A problem. That was the first time someone said it out loud. This could flip. After I hung up, I opened the video again and zoomed in on the watch frame by frame. It wasn't clear enough to show a face, that it was clear enough to show something else, the side door in the background cracking open first, like someone had let someone in. Kyle had always told us that side door alarm was sensitive, and only managers should use it. Yet there it was, open after close. I saved screenshots. Then I got another text, this time from an unknown number. "If you go to the cops, you'll regret it." No name, no signature. Just a threat with bad grammar. I stared at it, then took a screenshot and sent it to my attorney in the office's email. Documentation weapon. Quiet revenge doesn't look like a movie. It looks like sending emails. It looks like timestamps. It looks like letting people dig their own hole while you stand outside it holding the ladder they think you don't have. The next morning, my attorney forwarded me a copy of the preservation letter she sent to the studio and to their corporate email. Her note said, "Do not post online. Do not respond to provocation. Let them react." And that's exactly what happened. By lunch, Tessa texted me again. "Mia, Brett is freaking out. Kyle is acting like it's all your fault. They're saying you're trying to blackmail them." I typed back, "Don't reply to them. Just watch." Then Tessa sent one more message that made my heart go still for a second. "Also, the owner is coming in tonight, like the actual owner, not Brett." Authority figure arrival, the kinder person Kyle couldn't smile his way through. I stared at that text, then at my phone clock. Because suddenly this wasn't weeks away, this was a countdown, and I had one shot to make sure when the owner asked, "What happened?" The truth showed up first. If you're still watching, stay with me, because what I walked into that evening wasn't a quiet meeting in an office. It was a full staff emergency huddle, and Kyle didn't know I'd brought something with me that couldn't be argued with. At 6:07 p.m. I walked back into the studio for the first time since they took my keys, and every head turned like I'd set off an alarm. Kyle was by the desk with his clipboard doing that fake calm thing. Brett was posted near the retail shelf, arms crossed, jaw tight. Tessa was behind the counter pretending to wipe it, not looking at me. Jen stood with two other trainers, all of them quiet in that awkward way where nobody wants to be the next target. Then the owner, Marlene, came out of the office. Mid-50s, neat blazer, hair clipped back, eyes that didn't waste time. She looked straight at me and said, "Mia, you're here." Kyle stepped forward fast. I told her not to come, but... Marlene held up one finger without even looking at him. I asked her to come. That tiny moment was the first crack in Kyle's control. Marlene said, "Let's do this in the office." Kyle tried again. "We can handle it out here." Marlene cut him off. "Office, now." We walked back, and I noticed Kyle glanced at the security monitor on the wall as we passed. Quick, nervous, like he suddenly remembered cameras existed when it wasn't convenient. In the office, Marlene sat behind her desk, and Kyle and Brett hovered like they owned the air. She didn't. She nodded at me. "Tell me what happened." Kyle jumped in before I could speak. It's straightforward. Drawer was short, Mia closed, pattern of issues. She refused to sign the acknowledgement. Marlene's eyes moved to me. "Did you take money?" I said. "No, just that." Brett scoffed. "Come on." Marlene didn't react to him. She said, "Kyle says there's a pattern." I nodded once. "There is. The draw totals have been off for weeks. I have photos of my counts." And I asked for camera review multiple times. Kyle's voice sharpened. You never asked me. I pulled out my phone, not waving it around, just holding it ready. I have texts where I asked to check cameras when totals didn't match. Kyle blinked too hard. Marlene leaned forward. Show me. I slid my phone across. Screenshots, dates, Kyle replying with stuff like, not a big deal, and we'll fix it later. Marlene's mouth went flat. Then I said, also, the day you accused me, you did it in front of staff and members. You said the word thief. You threatened police if I didn't sign a statement. Brett leaned in like he couldn't help himself. Because you did it. I looked at him. Then you won't mind evidence. That was the first time I let a line land, not loud, just clean. Marlene held my phone a little tighter. What evidence? I said. I filed a report, so there's a timestamp, and my attorney sent you a preservation notice this morning. Kyle's face changed. Not anger. Fear. Quick and quiet. Brett's eyes flicked to Kyle like, wait, what? Marlene slowly set my phone down. You have an attorney? I said. Yes, because I was asked to sign a false confession. Kyle cut in, voice higher. Nobody asked for a false confession. It's a standard form. Marlene's eyes turned sharp. Why was it pre-printed with her name on it? Kyle froze for half a second, enough for me to see he hadn't expected that question. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded paper. I asked for a copy before I left. He wouldn't give it to me, so I took a photo. I slid my own printout across same statement, same wording, line for my signature saying I was responsible for the shortage. Marlene stared at it, then at Kyle. Kyle, he shrugged like he was offended. It's just procedure. Marlene said, procedure and not coercion. Brett shifted, stepping in like he could rescue it. This is getting dramatic. She's trying to threaten us. I didn't look at him. I looked at Marlene. May I show you the video? Kyle snapped. It doesn't show anything. Marlene didn't even ask him. Show me. I tapped play and turned the phone toward her. The clip was short. Nighttime. Empty studio. My voice in the video joking around to my friend. And then, in the background, the register area. The drawer opening. A wrist. The big black watch. The side door opening a second before. Marlene watched it twice without blinking. Then she paused on the frame with the watch. She looked up at Brett's wrist. He wasn't wearing it right then, but his hand went to his sleeve like he suddenly felt naked. Marlene's voice went low. Brett, do you own a black watch with a thick band? Brett laughed too fast. A lot of people own black watches. Marlene didn't move. Answer. Brett's jaw flexed. Yeah. So what? Marlene turned to Kyle. Who has the side door code? Kyle swallowed. Managers. Me. Brett. Marlene nodded like she was stacking blocks. And Mia didn't. I said, no. Then I did the quietest part of the revenge. I took out my second phone, old one, cracked screen. I set it on the desk and hit play. Marlene looked confused. Kyle looked like he recognized it, because it was the first video confession he didn't know existed. 2 weeks ago, when Kyle had been training me on closing, he told me to record a quick walkthrough on my phone so I'd stop asking questions. I had recorded while he talked. I never deleted it. In that video, you could hear Kyle's voice, clear as day. If the drawer's ever short, don't stress. Brett takes cash sometimes for petty stuff and forgets to log it. We just adjust it later. The office went silent in a way that felt heavy. Brett's face drained. Marlene's eyes didn't widen. They hardened. Kyle tried to speak, but nothing came out clean. He finally said, "That's out of context." Marlene said, "There is no context where that's okay." Brett slammed his palm on the desk. "This is ridiculous." She set us up. That was the moral anger shift right there, from me being the accused to them being exposed. Marlene stood up. "Brett, sit down." He didn't. "Mom." Marlene's head snapped. "Sit down." He sat, shocked, like he'd never heard that tone from her. Marlene turned to Kyle. You publicly accused an employee of theft, tried to force a confession, and you allowed unauthorized access to cash. Kyle said, I was protecting the business. Marlene pointed at my phone. You weren't protecting the business, you were protecting him. Truth versus protection choice, and she picked truth. She looked at me. Mia, I'm sorry. Then she looked back at Kyle. Effective immediately, you are suspended, pending investigation. Turn in your keys. Kyle's face went blank. Loss of control. He looked at Brett like Brett could save him. Brett stared at the floor. Marlene said, And Brett, you are not to enter this location without me present. Do you understand? Brett's voice came out small. You're taking her side. Marlene said, I'm taking evidence side. Proof playback hook, consequence delivery, all of it without yelling. Kyle stood there like his body forgot how to move. He finally dropped his keys onto the desk. The sound was loud in that little office. Marlene looked at me again. Do you want to file formally? Press it, because you have enough here for legal consequences. Safety versus loyalty. Family versus business. I kept my voice steady. I already made a report. I want my name cleared, and I want them to stop telling people I confessed. Marlene nodded. You'll get a written statement tonight. Then she added, and I'll correct the staff, publicly. Public exposure, but controlled. We walked out to the front where staff were pretending not to listen. Marlene didn't whisper. She didn't spin it. She said, I accused the wrong person by letting an internal narrative form. Mia did not steal. Mia refused to sign a false statement. We have evidence of mishandling cash by management, and we are addressing it. Jen's hand flew to her mouth. Tessa's shoulders dropped like she'd been holding her breath for days. Kyle stared straight ahead, like he was trying to disappear. Brett's face turned red, then pale, and in that moment nobody looked at me like a thief anymore. They looked at me like the person who stayed calm long enough to bring receipts. Later that night, Marlene emailed me a signed letter clearing me and offering my job back with back pay. I didn't take the job. I took the letter. I took my dignity. My attorney followed up, and the studio ended up settling quietly for wrongful termination and defamation, with a clause that Kyle could never be rehired there. Kyle left town within a month. Brett stopped showing up. And the weirdest part is, the revenge never felt loud. It felt clean. It felt like turning on a light and watching the lies scatter. If you've ever been humiliated in public and told to just let it go, what would you do? Stay quiet to keep the peace, or stay quiet long enough to collect proof and make the truth impossible to ignore?